Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast Rewired. And we are glad that we could reach out to so many people across the world. And we wish to share more of this. And in the previous episode, you've heard about my ICU experience in the previous podcast. And this time, we're going to listen to Swati's experience. We both wholeheartedly thank everyone who's listened to our podcast and who are sharing it worldwide. And both of us are really looking ahead to share more of our experiences together. And now, up to you, Swati.
Hey everyone, thank you Rohit, and thank you so much everyone for listening to us. It means a lot. And yes, as we have mentioned earlier, this podcast is primarily for brain stroke survivors and their caregivers and their first responders. So we hope that in the future you will participate with us and come with people who helped you through this journey and talk to us with them. So let's start with what happened with me in the hospital.
So, Swati, I want to first ask before you tell us about the hospital. So, I'm curious, how are you feeling like few days before all this episode started? I mean, were you stressed at work? Were you traveling a lot? And apart from that, was there anything else that was, maybe the weather around you? Have you had any issues even while eating?
Well, a week prior, I was doing okay. Normal days, prepping up for an upcoming project, eating well, sleeping well, the regular run of the mill days. But just maybe 2 or 3 days before the stroke, I woke up with a mild headache, which continued to increase in the days to come. By the time the morning of the stroke came, I thought I was well within a migraine, and as I mentioned in the earlier episode, I tried to keep myself calm. But as the day progressed, it was unbearable, and I finally just had to go and puke. Maybe a few minutes after that, it started. My leg started going limp, and slowly it was progressing upwards to my shoulder. And then within 15-20 minutes after that, my colleague ran me to the hospital where my parents were waiting. At first, they were trying to figure out whether to take me in MRI or not. This was because I had screws in my left knee. So someone kept asking on how many years old was the injury that I had had. Because MRI is basically magnetic resonance, right? So they wanted to make sure that I would be okay with my screws inside that big sphere. And I think my dad informed them that it was a 19-year-old injury, so the radiologist had to give a sign off, and we went to the MRI room. Later on, my dad was telling me about this. To me, it felt like hours, but actually, it may have just taken 10-15 minutes for somebody to make that decision. But it felt so long, and it really felt like the wait was too long.
Oh, Swati, metal, MRI. So, what happened next after the MRI?
I remember when I was shown the MRI scans, and my dad actually was the one who came to me and told me about the stroke. He was the first person to say to me, "Don't worry, I'm here. Mom and me will get you the best of the care." And he told me very softly in my ears, "You have had a stroke." For a second there, I was wondering, why is he speaking so sweetly to me? And I think he knew the extent of the trauma, so he was being extremely soft about the situation. Well, after that, they decided to take me inside the ICU. And I thought it was ICU, but actually, they had taken me to something called an HDU, a high dependency unit.
High dependency unit? I've never heard of this, Swati.
Yes, all hospitals have it. They were constantly monitoring me there. There was always a nurse around me. Like you said, right, that every hour somebody was checking you. There was somebody checking me every 5 to 10 minutes.
By the way, why did they take to an HDU and not to a ICU?
Actually, I questioned this to myself also. And, later on I asked my dad. And he mentioned that the day that I had the stroke, that day the ICU in that hospital was full. So, the next best thing was to put me in HDU and treat me the same as in ICU.
I wanted to ask in the previous episode that were there any other ailments that you were having before you got the stroke?
Yes, Rohit. When I came into the emergency room, my sugar was high as I have diabetes. And also my BP was high. I definitely don't have any BP issues, but diabetes is an everyday struggle. And also, they were waiting to see if I would have a stroke, like have another episode of it. So, they were just taking care of me on that level.
Were you scared or were you confused?
So, actually, what had happened was before I was taken to the ICU and after I was told that I had had a stroke, I actually only started panicking then. Prior to that was all very woohoo moments. Uh, but then I started realizing, and actually, probably the reality of it hit me that time. I had lost all the surge of energy I had earlier. When I was going to the HTU, the one surreal moment I remember is I saw all my friends standing there. I saw all my ex colleagues and some of my friends who had actually come because they were informed that something like this had happened. And it was so weird because they were saying things like, "Hi, don't worry, we are here, we'll take care." And this is, of course, apart from the fact that my family, my parents, everybody was around me.
What were you feeling? Like seeing all those people so close to you, standing next to you, and especially your parents and your close people. Like, what was there? When you hear that they said we'll take care of you, were you thinking like, what are they going to take care of me?
It was an image of getting taken away in a bed to HTU and seeing everybody's faces crossing me. It was a very weird feeling, a very horizontal feeling. And I was like, oh my god, what's going to happen next? And oh, I'm not able to move my leg or even my right side. And it seems quite heavy. And it started slowly creeping in. And all this time I was being taken on the bed. So when I saw their faces, in their faces, it was obviously a huge lot of concern to what's happening to her. And they were in shock, and I was in shock. And I was not just in shock about what was happening to me, I was in a shock that they were actually there.
So, what happened in the HDU then?
When I reached the HTU, okay, what was happening is that I couldn't move as much as I wanted to or try to. I just couldn't. Because it's not just the leg that was paralyzed. My right side was paralyzed up till my shoulder. The only thing was that I could lift my arm a little bit, to a certain extent. And I still had a good grip in my fingers and good wrist movements. And every day, morning, afternoon, then again evening, they were checking the grip in my fingers. So they kept asking me to hold my hand together, bend my wrist, turn it around, go round and round. It was like a constant everyday thing. So somebody had to put me straight up. Somebody had to pull a pillow behind me. Somebody had to put a cover on me. I was the 2 days that I was there, morning and evening. They were, how do I put it? They were changing my clothes, so they were cleaning me up, and it was a very emotional moment for me because there was a whole sense of loss of dignity. Because now I'm suddenly lying there, and I'm in their mercy, and I can't do anything about it. Rohit, do you understand that feeling? That feeling of loss? It's helpless. Did you go through that?
Yes, Swati, I did go through that. When I mean sense of dignity, I never felt somebody, change my clothes. Yes, my uncle did help me, but that was family. But when you see someone else doing in front of everyone else, and that was a bit of a taboo for me even now till date. I know they were doing their job, but I don't know. But yeah, let's get back to you, Swati. I'm sorry I cut you across in between, but yeah, this point is very important because sense of dignity is also being challenged there, but we have to go through it Because all that we are trying to do is get back to normalcy.
I agree with you there, Rohit. Yeah, it was it was quite the rock bottom moment for me. I was at complete helplessness, and I actually broke into tears. That was the time when I broke into tears, because I was just like, here's somebody who's actually, while giving the service, also getting angry because I'm not able to move. So she was actually getting angry at me, and I was so helpless. I started crying, and I didn't know what to do. And there was a nurse there who came running to me and tried to, she gently stroked me and said, "Don't worry, you're fine, you're okay." And she told the lady off. But it was weird.
So, by the end of the day, what else happened? Or did you get another stroke?
On the same day, the first night, because I was getting monitored 24/7, there was a doctor who was there, who was sitting right in front of me, front of my bed. And oh, by the way, Rohit, I have to tell you this: I didn't fit in my bed.
Now I understand the reason why Swati asked me whether I fit in my bed. See, that doesn't mean that, just because I'm taller than her, that doesn't mean I don't fit into the bed. She's shorter than me.
Yeah, I know, Rohit. We have logistical issues in different countries. Different countries, different beds. So here's what was interesting. The doctor was sitting in front of me, right? So at some point, probably I might have gone off to sleep for some time, and remember waking up and looking at a doctor in front of me. And the doctor was talking to me. He asked me, he said, "Hey, you're awake?" I said, "Yeah, I am." And then I started talking. I said, "Do you know what happened to me?" I asked him. And he said, "Yeah, you've had a stroke. We told you you've had a stroke. Don't you remember me?" I said, "No, I remember you." And while I started saying, "I remember you," I started slurring. My speech started slurring. I could feel the palm of my hands getting sweaty and the right side of my mouth falling. For just a few seconds, I couldn't talk properly. And then I took a breath and I asked him, "Did you just see that? I slurred in my speech." And the doctor was like, "Yeah, you did for a second. Take a deep breath and calm down. I think you're still panicking," is what he said. I said, "Oh, okay." And I calmed down. It was just that.
Were you ever trying to, explain yourself to people that, everything is normal, it just happened, I'll recover soon? Or were you trying to tell yourself, like, nothing happened to me, I just want to show a brave front to everyone during your ICU period?
None of that. I was in Alice in Wonderland mode. I, I honestly, there was so much of medication inside me that I was just like, whatever's happening is happening in real time. Take it as it's coming. And yes, I knew that was a stroke. The extent of it was a reality now. And, slowly I started realizing that this is not a small thing that happened, and that actually something big has happened.
Swati, at least you know it was a stroke. I just did not know what was happening to me. I just thought it was a headache. I didn't even know the meaning of stroke except for the one which we play in cricket. Wow, what a stroke. That's the only thing I knew about a stroke. But brain stroke, I didn't know. It just didn't know, even though we are educated. So, like, had a master's degree in my engineering, of course, but I didn't know what is a stroke.
Actually, Rohit, I think most people out there, including us, don't understand it well, or the extent of life changes that a stroke can cause. Maybe it will be better understood to a certain extent when people start accepting it as a reality.
So, during all of this happening at the HTU, were you awake?
Every couple of minutes, I was knocking off to sleep. I kept knocking out to sleep. Uh, I didn't realize what was happening, so I would just go off to sleep. Anyway, I'm magical that way. I go to sleep in seconds. But just to keep doing that, it was building a fear in me, and every time I was waking up with that fear because I was sleeping so much. And then I asked the doctor what was happening. Why am I sleeping so much? And he said, "Because you have to heal, and the brain needs you to be asleep while it's healing itself." So, also, I remember when my colleague was bringing me to the hospital, my dad had told him to keep me awake till we get there. But that was before the meds. Once I was pumped in with the meds, no one was asking me to be awake. And I guess, like the doc said, sleep and let your brain heal.
Swati, you were all alone in the HDU, and did that make you feel scared?
One of the moments was such that when I woke up, there were a bunch of 10 doctors around me. And I got the fear, I was like, what is this? And those guys saw that I got scared and I had woken up, and they were like, no, relax. We're just here. We are teaching. This is a teaching hospital. You don't have to worry about anything.
Oh, yeah, even I had a lot of doctors once I woke up, because even I was worried, like, why are they all looking at me as if I'm somebody as a Martian, I guess, like an alien, I guess.
Of course. And I think they were just doing rounds, honestly. And they were at my. I just happened that I opened my eyes and there they were. So, they said, don't worry, we're just here to see what's happening, and, we'll move away from here for a bit. You're fine, don't worry, you're fine. They kept saying that to me. In fact, that is the time when they started off saying that. So this was probably on the second day morning when this was happening. And then, of course, I had my, the first visit was from my dad in the morning at 7 o'clock. I think it was around 7 o'clock, because those are the visiting hours. And he walked in, he saw me, he had a big smile on his face, and he was like, don't worry. In fact, he was putting up a more positive front than me. He was like, don't worry, it's all good. Mummy will come and meet you in the evening. You'll be fine. Doctors are saying that you're not going to have another stroke. So just relax. After he said that, yes, it was extremely calming. So positivity is very important in every step of the way. We here, I feel that we don't say this often to everyone or each other, but it is important that when somebody is going through a trauma like this, it's important to try to calm them down instead of telling them that, oh my God, you had something. It's important to say, hey, you can move forward from this. You'll just have to find your way to do it. That is important. Also, I have noticed that the first few things that are spoken to us when we are in a vulnerable moment are the things that still stay with us.
Yes, Swati, reassuring the person and being positive around the person is very important. So, also tell me, how many days were you in the HDU and what happened after that?
So, I only had 3 days in the HDU. So the third day was okay. It was normal. The same things repeated. 24/7 outlook on what was happening with me. And by the afternoon of the third day, I was in my room. And when I was taken to the hospital room, I stayed there for probably another 4 days more.
Swati, I'm curious, how many wires were you wired with? Because wiring is such an important thing. Because if any of the wires don't go well, you wouldn't recover fast. So, going back, tell me how many wires?
So Rohit, there were multiple things. I mean, obviously they had the heart rate monitor and the BP monitor and the oximeter on my finger. But they actually also had a constant BP surveillance happening on me, because my BP was so high when I had entered the ICU that every half an hour that would squeeze itself. So throughout the 24 hours or 48 hours that I was there, it constantly every half an hour would take off on its own and measure the BP. So anytime in the night I would wake up and I would be like, there was this sound that used to be there. It was so funny because I would wake up with that sound. And then there was the, diabetes. They were regulating my diabetes, and they actually had some machine allocated to me, which was pumping in the meds automatically after every couple of hours. So yeah, that's how wired I was.
I remember you mentioned earlier that during your childhood you had migraine, followed by epilepsy, and also that you had diabetes, and you were brought to the hospital with high BP. Do you ever think these were interconnected and the reason for your stroke?
Rohit, when I was in the HTU, I remember every time a new doctor came, they were asking me if I had COVID earlier and did I have any history of BP. Was my diabetes regulated? Was I maintaining my sugar levels? And this was always the question of the day. Later on, when I was shifted to the room, also, I was asked this multiple times. Then I used to think maybe they're just hoping that my answer would change. But when I got down to think about it, yes, definitely, all in all, it was a Molotov cocktail. And with the kind of ailments, it was probably inevitable since my diabetes was not in control. But apart from that, I still don't have any BP issues. And yeah, I did have COVID twice. So I guess, it happened the way it did.
I know you were in the HDU. Were there any funny moments?
There were many things that were happening around me. One incident happened when, on the third day before going to the room, I was getting prepped for it. So, before that, like I said earlier, I didn't fit in the bed, right? So, they had actually removed the bed barricade for me towards the leg. So, then when they were helping me get up, I kept slipping because I didn't have the energy and my leg was like stone. So, it kept weighing me down. And one of the nurse said, "Wait, I know what will help her." And she brought back the barricade. And everyone, including me and the doctors and the nurses, everybody had a good laugh. Another incident that was, what I remember from the emergency to HDU till room, I had a chapstick with me. Because with the sudden dose of medication that they were giving me, my lips were continuously dry. So I had to keep asking the nurse where it was, and every time it showed up right next to me. Then, when I was brought to the room, the nurse from HTU came to hand over all the papers and handed me the chapstick, smiled, and said, "Don't forget this, you're precious." And 2 years later, I still am holding on to it. I don't use it, of course, anymore, but it's just a small reminder, like a totem, that you made it, that you've got through, and give yourself a pat in the back and just breathe.
Totem. Interesting. What's that?
It's actually a reference from a film which I saw a very long time back, in which a totem is a piece of an object that reminds you or brings you back to reality of what's happened and how far long you've come.
I wanted to ask one more thing. Apart from your family, Swati, who all came to meet you?
So, yeah, so the moment when I was being taken to before I was taken to the ICU, I remember my dad put my best friend on call. And, she said, "Hey, I'm coming, don't worry, I'll be there in the morning." And it was such a relief because she had to fly down from another state. So I didn't even think that to call her, but she actually called me and she said, "Don't worry, I'll be right there." And the next day she was there. And I had, after I had met my dad, I had gone off to sleep. That evening, my mom came to the HTU and she had the most angel-like smile on her face. And that was enough for me. She was like, "Now I know that you will be fine and tomorrow will be a better day. Don't overthink it." It was the sweetest thing that I had heard that day. And I remember it just stayed with me. Then my best friend came and she was the most comforting and told me, "It's okay, I'm here now. Don't think of anything, I'm right here. I'm taking care of everything. You don't have to worry." And at that point, she was also taking care of my dog, who was there at home alone. So it's extremely comforting when you have a support system around you. And I think that's what you need and you want to maintain that. And I was like just sighing away, that people are here. My people are here. They are with me. Then an old friend showed up. She got to know from our workspace that something like this had happened to me. And she came the first thing she said was, she knew of someone else who had had a stroke and the lady was walking within a month. So you'll be able to do the same. Don't worry. Remember, Rohit, I said this earlier. The first things that are said to you after a trauma like this always stay back with you. And just like that, it became the goal for me for the next coming days. And by the support system, I meant it could have been anyone you trust, a family member, a friend, or anyone else that you trust.
Yes, Swati. Similarly, during my days at the hospital, my uncle's presence made all the difference because that support system was so strong. I'll share this. The doctor said it might take me weeks or months to recover, but I recovered faster than his expectations. And I can vouch for it that the presence of someone very close to you makes all the difference.
So, this brings us to the end of this episode. And in the next episode, we will hear about the extended stay in the hospital where I was in the room versus Rohit being in his rehab in 2009. And as we mentioned in our last episode, we are here to just talk about us, our journey, and we would love to hear from you and have you participate with us. And come back to us with what you would like us to talk about through our journey or yours. So hang in there and come along with us to be a part of our podcast. Till then, keep listening and thank you. We are Rewired. And remember, it's not a race.